So in this video, we're going to go over how to create a scatter plot and determine the line of regression, or also known as a line of best fit, using our graphing calculators. And these steps will work for generally any TI 82 through 84 version of the calculator. So as long as you're following those steps, you should be okay. And you will also be provided an organizer that will go over the steps in detail as well. So the first thing is we need to take our calculator and make sure that everything is cleared out and set up to run the diagnostics for your linear regression line. And this is the data that we're going to be using. We're going to go back to our shoe length and height data. So let me go to our calculator. And so what we're going to do here is we are going to turn on the diagnostics for our calculator. So in order to do that, we're going to press second and then 0 above that. See how in blue it says catalog? So we're going to press that. And we're going to scroll down until we see diagnostics on. And we're going to press enter and enter again. We should only have to do this once on our calculator and it will remain on. If you do some other functions or play a game or an extension on your calculator, you might have to go back and redo this step. The next step is we want to make sure that we have everything cleared out in the lists and y equals on our calculator. So let's start with the y equals. So let's press our y equals key. And if we had any equations listed here, we would want to press delete or clear to have that empty. If you had any scatter plots turned on like that, you would just arrow up, press enter and arrow back down so they're now off. Now we're going to go to the list where we have to store our data. So we press our stat key and edit. And you can see we have some things in previous list. All we do is arrow up, press clear and arrow back down, and it's reset it for us. You can do the same thing for the other list. Clear, arrow back down. And now we are ready to input our data for this problem. So now it's time to enter our data. So our inputs X, our shoe length, that's what we're going to call our list 1. And so we're going to enter the values in from our table on our paper. And so the first one was 12.6. You would type in 12.6 and hit enter. And then you hit the next value, which you've got 11.8, enter, and you just keep repeating that all the way through so that you have all of your data in your list 1. All right, so we had 10 data sets for our collection, so just do a quick check and make sure that everything is accurately entered. I've got to go back and adjust this one here, which should be 12.2. And here we had 12.8. All right, so we have everything entered into list 1 for the shoe length. Now list 2 is going to be the outputs, our y, the height. So again, we enter in each data value, hitting enter in between each value. And this is an important step here. Again, double check to make sure all your outputs are accurately entered. And then notice how there's the same number of entries in list 1 and list 2. This is critical because if you do not have the same amount, you will get an error on your calculator and will not let you go past the point to get the equation. So just double check you have the same number of entries in list 1 and list 2, and now we can proceed to the next step. So we have everything entered in. So what we're going to do is we go back to the main screen. So we're going to press second mode because it's quit in the blue. And so now we're going to tell our calculator to calculate our line of regression. So what we're going to do is we're going to press stat, calculate, so arrow to the right. And because we know it's a linear set of data, we're going to go to option 4. You can either arrow down to option 4 and press enter. You could press number 4 and enter. And then it's going to ask you a couple of questions. So we have our x values in list 1, our y value in list 2, and where do we want to store our equation? I would like to put this in y1 on my graphing calculator so I can actually see this when I turn on my scatter plot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the vars key. So it's talking about variables. And I know I'm talking about my y variables. So I arrow to the right. It is a function, so you press 1 or press enter. And I want to store it into y1. And then I can go down to calculate, and it will come up with my linear regression equation. And notice how we see r squared and r. Remember, r squared is the residual squared, and r is the residual. And so we're going to look at those values later and see how strong of a relationship it is for our data set. So if we want to see what this looks like, we could press graph, and there's our residual equation, but we don't see our data point. So let's fix our view. So let's turn our scatter plots on. So let's press second y equals, and let's go to option 1, so press enter, and we're going to turn it on. And first one is your scatter plot. We're using the data values in list 1 and list 2. Then you could put your marking that you want for your points. I typically go with squares. You could pick whatever you'd like. I would probably stay away from the small point. And then if you have the color calculator, you can pick what color you want. So pick your mark. And then what we wanted to do also is fix our window for the graph. So if we press zoom and we go down to option 9 stat, it'll automatically adjust our viewing window for us so we can see our data values and our line of fit. So again, remember, you want it going in the direction of the data values. We want them split approximately above and below. And because we're using the graphing calculator, having it go through some data values, it would be nice, but it's not essential here because it's doing all of the calculations for us. So we can see that we're meeting those other requirements for your line of fit, and we can also talk about the strength of the correlation for that line of fit. So again, let's go back to our previous screen. And so think about what the equation was before. We had it being y equals 25.3, so we're on target there. And then it was plus 0.366x, so we're on target there. We can see our r value is 0.65, so it's fairly strong. And the residual squared, right, is 0.4, so that's small as well. So we're pretty accurate with our predicted values compared to the actual values. So that's just a quick tutorial on how to create your scatter plot and line of fit using your graphing calculator. I've also got the organizer attached on how to walk you through each of those steps one more time with whichever calculator you have, whether it's an 84 version or an 83 version, and I hope you find that helpful.